Optimize every day, where we look at what things we can do to improve ourselves 1% daily. So, we've talked about quite a few different things lately.
Yeah.
And yesterday we talked a little bit about intention. And I think we covered that fairly thoroughly. Today, I think that we should delve a little bit into systems and behavior. And how changing our systems and our behavior, or I'll put it a little differently. When we change our situation, we lose stasis, which is our center, essentially. And how we develop a new stasis when we are changing our behavior and improving our systems or changing our systems. It's kind of like, when something happens to you, and now instead of letting somebody get within 2 feet of you, now you hold a bubble that's 6 feet, because you're trying to understand and reimagine life in a safer situation, so your bubble gets bigger so that you don't get hurt. In this case, we're not looking at it in that fashion. We're looking at it as we've made a change, and we're trying to force a change, per se. And our bubble is being manipulated by us internally, and our brain is not catching on to that change, and it's trying to bring us back to stasis, and we're trying to force it out of the old stasis. Stasis wants to stay the old stasis, and we want to find a new center so that we're improving. Kind of a little crazy concept, don't you think?
I guess. I got lost on most of that. I don't even know what stasis is till you explained it. I speak in very simple terms and think in very simple terms, but I think what you're trying to say is that, like, and trying to find some type of balance, that sometimes we try to play it safe and keep things at a distance at certain times, or, yeah.
We do that.
This is deep.
It's something that we just naturally do, and when
human nature, maybe.
When our status quo gets blown up, we have to find a new one.
Yeah. A new system, new way of doing things.
Yeah. Okay. And when you change jobs, or you move to a new house, or you get a new car,
new areas of mastery and stuff.
Everything, you have to find your new center. And that's not always an easy thing to do.
It's usually a hard thing to do for most of us. I would believe it's gonna be hard, because we lose our sense of comfortability center. We lose our sense of what to expect every day. What do they call that? When you're pretty much expecting the same thing every day. You're used to it. It's smooth. There's less anxiety. There's less.
And then all of a sudden, something happens.
Yeah, it's a whole new change of course, and now you're headed into the unknown. At least for a little while, and that can be scary. So yeah, very, very important subject in that matter.
And we don't think about it when we go along our day. We get up, brush our teeth, eat breakfast, have a glass of water. Then we head off to wherever we're going, and then we do whatever we normally do, and then we come back, and it's like rinse and repeat all the time, and then something happens, and
Change the course.
it is, that could be there was a car accident and your car is total and you get hurt. It totally changes your whole view. But in this case, with trying to make behavioral changes, we're the ones who are internally trying to make and force a change. And, we've been talking about gradual pieces. And that makes it a lot easier. We use the running example. When you get started, you put on your shoes and you go outside. It's the intention. And we talked about intention yesterday, as I mentioned earlier. That intention, when we do it again and again and again, builds a behavior. And once you're outside, the intent is that we're going to do some exercise. And we may or may not take off and exercise. But every time we go outside, when we're dressed and ready to go out and run, more than likely we'll either take a walk or we'll take a short run. And that short walk can turn into a long walk. The long walk can turn into a short run. The short run can turn into a long run. And it's just that building upon itself. But sometimes there's things that happen that require a faster change because it's unexpected.
On the fly.
It's on the fly. It just happens.
Yeah.
And so now our 1% is getting all flustered.
Could be.
Or maybe it's not.
Or it could be going into solid problem solving.
It could be.
That's why we did 12 years of school in primary. Just is all about problem solving. And so the people that win go into that mode. They're like, I got to solve this real quick.
A lot of people would take umbrance with that idea that we learn how to think in school.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
That's what it should be, but that's not what often happens. And that is a good point right there. There are a lot of people who think, oh, I learned so much in school, and I know how to do algebra, and I know how to do a little bit of calculus, and then they get to college, and they don't know how to think. They don't know how to problem solve because they were never taught how to do that.
They didn't really pick that part up. I mean, but that's what happens in school. They're teaching you these different maths and Englishes and sciences and all this stuff. Most people will never use any of that in their life. So what is the bottom line that's really going on here? In each category, you're solving problems. How to word this better, how to mathematically solve this better, how to scientifically, analyze this better, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, most human beings or Americans or whatever should be able to do it, but you're right. They're not able.
and when anything throws a wrench into anything, they falter, and then all of a sudden they just drop, and they don't have a direction. They lose direction. It's like you're running it at 5 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you go to a crawl.
Yeah, this is what great leadership is about. This is why only certain people in the world can be great leaders, because when it hits the fan, do they crumble, get nervous, scared, run and hide, or do they hit it directly? Okay, I got the answers, the solutions, and face things that are tough. You have to be able to face things that are tough to be a certain type of leader or strong person, right? So that is,
there are a lot of people out there, though, that, they want to be great leaders, and they just don't know how.
Or other people want them to be great leaders. Some people they're pushed into these positions, and you're looking at them like, no.
And they really aren't what people expect.
Nope.
And they make poor decisions because they haven't been trained how to do that. And they're not doing anything to improve themselves, to make themselves be a great leader. And there are people who sit there and think they're great leaders.
Yeah.
And they spew a lot of big ideas and big thoughts, maybe, but they don't give any way to accomplish. They just say, we're going to do this because I said so, and that's not a leader.
Right.
That's just somebody who knows how to do something. Leaders know how to listen and follow the individuals who are capable and have the ability to reach the other side with some level of guidance. You know, they need somebody that's higher up that can give them the path.
Can empower them.
It's the leadership that empowers them to get across the river.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that the leader, gets on the front of the boat and guides the boat.
Exactly.
That's the captain.
Yeah.
And it's not the guy who lifts the sail. That's the sailor.
Right.
And it's not the guy who makes the steel that builds the trusses for the bridge. That's the steel maker. The person who guides where the size of that steel and where that steel needs to place. That's the engineer.
Yeah, I like that you're saying that too, because a leader. I give an example from when I manage people. One of the things I make sure I always do is I never tell them to do anything. Right? I always ask them as if I need their help. Right? And this is an old technique. I forgot where I learned it, but I asked for their help. Hey, Sarah, can you help me with this? I could use a hand with this. I need your help. And what that does, it creates a feeling inside of the people that are following you or employees or whoever it is that you need them, and that without them, so it adds value to them immediately when you ask them for help, and it makes them take a little more pride in doing the job. So it has all these positive measures just by changing your position as a leader and not being so direct and we're going to do this. No. That once you go into that, you become somebody that people don't want to work under. They don't want to really follow you. They may be forced to, but that's not good leadership. There's so many parts of leadership, but we could do a whole week of leadership.
We could do that. One funny thing that I find interesting, people who are good leaders, often people who are not good leaders don't like good leaders.
You say people who are not good leaders don't like good leaders?
People who are poor leaders don't like good leaders.
Yeah.
Because they often feel threatened. When
Yes.
when I was working in a managerial leadership role at one place I worked, I had a lot of employees working for me. And one of my strategies was that I created subject matter experts in all the areas that I was responsible for.
Yeah, that needed attention.
And in a lot of cases, I was knowledgeable enough that I could teach people how to get to the end goal. And I could get them 80 to 90% of the way there. But then once I got them where they were able to do the task successfully, then I tasked them with teaching others.
Yeah.
And
Delegation.
Delegation is a huge task.
It's big
in
time.
leadership.
Yeah.
It's a skill that is huge that most leaders need to develop in their self-improvement. And when you have somebody teaching somebody else how to do something, it gives them new skills. It teaches them how to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And then it places them in a position of being
Or they can take some pride in their work.
some level of they're taking a leadership position.
Accountability. I mean, they're
And
accountable for
oh
what you
yeah, whenever any leader is going to be accountable for something big, bigger than themselves.
Then you hold your people accountable.
And then when you hold your people accountable, then when they're teaching somebody else, they can hold that person accountable.
Right.
And on the whole, you end up with a much stronger team. And you end up with not just one subject matter expert, but you end up with multiple subject matter experts. And then when something happens, somebody gets hit by a bus,
somebody can fill in.
somebody's able to fill that hole,
Yeah.
and you don't feel the pain so much. It's still a pain, but the pain
It doesn't destroy the ship or take us down.
It doesn't take everything down, and it's easier to maintain your status quo and keep the ship righted and keep it going on to
Without going
its
so
way.
far off course. That's true.
When you're looking at your personal development and self-development, oftentimes leaders will require employees to set goals. I think that my introspection over the last week, week and a half, is that we need to change the focus on people having goals. Not that they shouldn't have goals, but in behavior improvement. Because the goal is what management wants you to see. And that can be sitting up here, and everybody can see what that.
But you don't perform the goal. You perform the behavior to get you to the goal. Yeah.
Right. So if you're requiring your people to have a behavior improvement, that means they have to learn. They have to improve.
And you might have to lead them by example.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But they will have that opportunity to show that they have skills, that they are able to learn. And when you have a large business and you have new things that you're trying to get to, oftentimes the technologies to get to that end goal may not even exist.
Yeah. You might be waiting on that to come down the pipeline and have to make something fit till then.
And so you may be having your team developing processes so that you can take it to another group to develop a technology, or to have them be able to build a structure, or something that is different that currently does not exist.
Innovation.
And then in some cases, we're looking at a situation where we're not trying to make something new, but rather having to learn something new. And
Training.
you need to be able to have a person or people or a group that you can have learn the new process and then be able to integrate that into their workflow. And in doing so, they're increasing their 1% daily because they have to. If they don't, then they fail. And if they're not showing that their behaviors are constantly improving, then they're just sliding. And if they're sliding, nobody wants to keep them. So it's a matter of building a thought pattern and a environment where not only is learning important, but behavior change and behavior improvement is part of that learning process. It sounds so simple, and yet it's so hard.
It's hard for most companies to pull that off.
Yeah.
Most companies cannot pull that off. Yeah.
Leadership within companies.
There's really great companies that do. They just have a great system for pulling that off. You can see them in every industry, but that's why there's winners and losers in business. It's because of exactly what you're saying there.
You have one person who's put in a leadership role, they don't lead, and it can cause
Disaster.
Significant failure.
I've seen multi-million-dollar contracts lost because the wrong person was in charge.
Yep.
It'll lose so much money so fast, and
it's funny because those people who end up losing those big giant contracts, they fire everybody around them because they're so important.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything wrong.
They make it about them.
And it's how everybody failed them rather than looking to the inside.
Yeah.
They weren't doing what they needed to do.
I think great leaders, like you're saying, they're self-sacrificial. A good quarterback that comes out might not have been totally at fault for the loss, but as a leader of the team, they need to put it on themselves, right?
A lot of good leaders will take will fall on the sword, and they'll say, it doesn't matter who failed, I failed.
Yeah, it's on my watch. I mean, that's what you like to see. You like to see accountability from the top down. And like you said earlier, when you have that in your business or in your organization, now we're talking about something that's tangible. When you have all these people who are fairy tale, pointing the finger, blaming, you will have a disaster on your hands and a bunch of whiners and sissies.
It's always sad to see when you do have somebody who is a good leader and is willing to fall on the sword, and they are surrounded by people who are unwilling to learn, unwilling to follow direction, unwilling to do that which it takes to make the improvement and do the behaviors that they need to do to be a success and make the entire project a success. You can see that on sports teams where you get a player who just sits there and goes, I'm the best there's ever been. And they ain't the best there's ever been.
They want to be.
They're just really good at what they do, but they're not taking their cues. They haven't learned the behavior that they need to benefit the team. The only person they're trying to benefit is themselves. And how far can benefiting just yourself get you?
It only takes you so far because you lose out on the team win. Like say it's a professional sport. If your team isn't successful, you can't win an MVP award. You can't have a bad team that year and get the MVP. It doesn't work like that. Your team has to have success for them to even consider you to be the most valuable player. So this, it's usually a team thing. But I'm going to go back to something you mentioned a minute ago is I think we're talking about the leadership and being sacrificial. This is why so many businesses and corporations, especially in the past, I think it's less now, and that's why we have so many failing businesses in America, but they used to have more moral holding or standing, right? Like in Christianity, the Jesus leadership example, self-sacrificial, whatever it takes, the honor, the integrity. We modeled so many businesses like that, and people love dealing with businesses like that because they feel safe, secure, and they feel like the right thing's being done. Kind of in the fast food industry, you can look at a Chick-fil-A like that. It seems like every time you go there, they're all on the same accord, doing a good job. I feel like this is good. But then you go to another fast food and you feel like there's a disaster going on. Like Popeyes.
I remember way back when Too Tall Jones was playing for the Steelers. There was one time where he was notorious for blocking kicks. And whenever he missed a kick that ended up in a field goal or an extra point, he always blamed himself that he could have been in the right position, or he didn't see that little thing that he should have saw. When he goes back and looks at the tape, he took it personally. He felt like he was the leader of that part of the team. The only thing that was important in that play was that point attempt, whether it be an extra point or a field goal, that it was either blocked or there was something that caused
a deflection or something like that.
Or causing that kicker to make a mistake and not get the extra points. Did he ever fault the kicker for making it? No. In fact, he gave high fives to kickers who actually made it past him. He recognized their skill and their ability to not get rattled.
And be able to deceive him into missing.
Yeah.
He respected that.
He respected that. So we need to understand that we need to be doing something similar. Our status may not be on the same level of that playing field.
Right.
In fact, our playing field will look very different.
Yeah.
Sitting behind a desk and pushing paper is a much very different playing field.
And being in that mud out there on a steel curtain.
Yep.
But that's right. Personal accountability is what you're talking about there, and that's what we all have to be successful in any way. Personal accountability, and if you're in leadership, holding yourself accountable and your people accountable is just the way to build a business, man. Accountability down the line, because when you have crap up top, it always rolls downhill, and it just ruins your whole thing.
Yep. And, you don't have to be running a business. You just have to be running yourself.
The business of self.
The business of self.
Run that with accountability for a day.
And, again, making that 1% improvement daily is not going to look the same every day. And that's why we come up with different topics to talk about every day. But a combination and utilizing these skills in different ways is going to make that 1% happen. At this point, I think we need to look at those at a future date again. There's nothing static here. So go and like and subscribe. Make comments if you feel it appropriate, and we'll reply. And thank you for watching. We appreciate every view.